All right, new player's guide to English part 2. So if you haven't watched part 1, you might want to do that first. But basically what we're going to do here is go through the same build order but in first person, and I'm going to speak to it a little bit as we go. A little bit more depth, a little bit more explanation about how to execute it and why we're doing what we're doing, what we're trying to achieve, and some things to sort of focus on. Also, some of the more important things more generally, namely macro, control of units and your base, as well as some decision making. So we want to sort of build up, hopefully, some of those new habits or good habits right from the start. So let's jump in. First things first, we're going to make villages out of TC. We're going to put our villages onto sheep, and then we're going to send our scout across the map. The exact order you do those three things in does not really matter. I think that's the best order, but it doesn't really make too much of a difference. And if you don't do it super quick, it also doesn't really matter. It's more of a just trying to do as fast as you can. But if you're a little bit slow, it doesn't make a big difference. So we're going to rally to gold. First two villages are going to go to gold, so we're going to rally there. And the first villager is going to make a mining camp. At some point before we get population blocks, so before this is 10 out of 10, we are going to build a house. So I'm just going to do that right now. Just build a house and then shift right click. So QQ to build the house, and then shift right click to go back to base. One thing we're going to do that's super important, so we're rallying back to food now. Super important is we're going to try to build good habits early. The early part of the game is you can see it's population block there, by the way, but it doesn't actually matter unless this fully gets produced, and then it will block. So we weren't actually in danger there, even though we got the little warning. Yeah, we want to build good habits from the start, right? So as soon as you sort of get into multiplayer, you want to try to be making sure you're doing things nice and optimally, or as optimally as reasonable. So using your hotkeys is really important. I've got my town center hotkey on 4, so I'm double tapping 4 to come back. Scouting to make sure I get all the sheep I can. I'm going double tapping 1 to go to my scout. Don't worry too much about the routing. I think when you're new, just route across the map in the rough direction of your opponent's base, and then just try to come back doing half the map. If you see his scout, go the opposite way. And I wouldn't overthink it any more than that. There's heaps of mind games with it, but it's just not worth worrying about. Biggest things to worry about at this point is just making sure we're always producing villages, and that we are executing the build as sort of efficiently as we can. The next thing we know we're going to do is, once we hit 400, 200, is we're going to make our council hall. So I'm going to take 3 villages, just put them on a hotkey right away, because I know we're going to use them to age up. So now we're sort of getting to 400. I'm going to take them, I'm actually going to force drop them off, and then I'm going to bring them up here and then build the council hall. Next thing in the build is putting 2 onto wood, so I'm going to put them there, and I'm going to rally onto wood. I say 2 onto wood. Actually, the important thing is that we only have 6 on food. So I had 2 extra at 8 on food, so we take the extras and put them on wood, and now we're rallying to wood, dropping off the sheep there. There's some like weird optimal things you can do with sheep management around your TC. I'm not going to do that, and I don't think new players should really worry about it. But there are, just so you know, if you see like other streamers or pros or whatever doing it, there are little optimizations you can do. Again, I'm not going to worry about them. And I don't think you should worry about them for the purposes of learning. So the main thing, again, we're focusing on here is just executing as best that we can. Once you get a bit more into the game, you're going to do a lot of like scouting what your opponent's doing and reacting. But the good thing about doing a bit of a feudal aggression build, which is what we're doing here, is that we can sort of dictate the tempo a bit more. And if we can just execute the same thing every game, and our opponent has to react to us. I actually shouldn't get too many sheep here, because it'll ruin the sort of the real world aspect of the build, because you're not going to get that many sheep in a real game. Although I didn't get that many to start with, so I'll take these home, and then we'll say that's how many sheep we got. So next thing, this is going to come up very soon. So 2 of these guys are going to go back to wood, so I'm going to shift right click back, and one of them, which I'm going to put on its own hotkey here, not super important, but just the way I do it, is going to be building a barrack. So I can actually queue that up now. So I go QS, shift left click to place, and then shift right click back to wood. and that'll do us. So I'm going to just manually drop these sheep off and then go across the map to scouts. That's good. When this guy that's building goes to wood, that's going to give us 11, which we're going to. So I'm actually going to now rally already to sheep. So that's going to give us our 11 on wood, which is the amount that we want. So at this point we should be making longbows. I already wasn't. That's really good job by me. We're making longbows when we can, and like I talked about in another video, this is our production cycle. So the important part here is, first of all, we want to make villages non-stop. And then we want to make as many spears as we know we need. Against French, we know we need some, because French knights are going to be coming as soon as he ages up. But most people are going to make, most civs are going to make cavalry against English if you're going to be making longbows, which at this point you can expect. Now, obviously, there's caveats, but I'm not going to go into that. So spearmen are the priority right now, and then longbows, but some games longbows will be more of a priority. So this is a good test of your macro cycle. I'm going to actually pause to explain this a little bit. The macro cycle is a fundamental part of any RTS, and it's huge for Age of Empires 4. You always want to be making villages. There's not a time, as a new player, there's not a time where you're not going to be making villages out of your TC. So you always want to be doing that and making sure that it's never idle. One of the big things to improving early is you are going to have some idle time initially, but you're going to want to really work on that as best you can and make sure you have as little idle time as possible over the course of the whole game. So you want to make sure you're always going back to your TC. In this case, for me, tapping 4 and then pressing Q, or seeing in the bottom left if I'm making a vill and pressing 4 and Q. A villager takes 20 seconds to make, so you want to be coming back to your TC at least, or look at pressing 4 at least every 20 seconds. But you probably get into the habit of doing it more often, just so you're seeing. You don't need to double tap to go back to your TC to look. You don't have to be looking physically here at your TC to know whether you're making a villager. So don't fall into that trap of looking at your base when you don't need to. You could be looking at your scout or doing other things, what have you. After the villages, you want to be making units, so spearmen and longbowmen. Really, really important that we are spending our resources as they come in. Any resources you're gathering and you're not spending is just wasted potential. It's wasted power. So when people talk about good macro, they talk about getting as many resources as possible, being efficient and optimal, and then also being able to spend them. What that means is you can have more units, more shit, and if you do it better than your opponent, you're gonna have more shit than him. And at this level, it's basically all the way up to like early Conqueror, having more shit beats less shit. So it's a huge, really, really big part of the game. Really, really important and big part of the game that's going to be a huge part of your learning experience. So we're going to build, now that we've got a little bit of a wood build up, which I think I've actually done this a little bit early, but it is what it is. We're going to go and make a blacksmith and a house there as well. To keep producing. So for me, I've got my production of 5 and my TC on 4. So I'm always looking at 4 to be like, okay, am I near? If I'm near, I need to make sure I make a spearman, or sorry, a villager. And then if I'm not near, I know I can actually just go and make to queue up another unit instead. So I want another spearman here. I actually need to really be pumping more longbows than I am. And yeah, so this is all we're really doing. Getting that range upgrade there. It's part of the build. No. Nothing too interesting there. In this part, realistically in a real game, one of the things you're going to be worried about is whether he's attacking you. So before you're going out, I probably actually want to have my units over here. Just going to make another house. Just to make sure, because these vills are quite exposed. These ones are less so, right? It's under the TC fire. We can see that we can shoot quite far. It's this one here. But the gold isn't. So it's an important thing to worry about. Just want to make sure we're not taking damage, and then we are going to go across the map after these next units come out, and we're going to see if we can do a little bit of damage. So I'm going to bring my scout back to join the party, and then these guys are going to come. Okay, so we're going to think his gold's in the front, so we're going to press his gold. All the while we're still making units, we're still doing stuff. One of the things I should probably mention, let me get my next upgrade, is with efficiency, is you don't want to queue up too many. If you each time you queue up a villager, I could queue up like all these villagers and that uses the money instantly, even though they're not producing instantly. which is wasted potential because that could be units, right? You could have your all your stuff's more split evenly across your production and your TC, which is a lot more efficient. So it's another part which is quite hard as the game goes on, but early on it's a lot more doable. So now we're here, we're sort of trying to just poke a little bit. Oh, okay, sweet, we got a kill there. We can see him aging out. Again, this is just AI, so it's not going to be much. Be very realistic, but we're making do what we can. So now you can see I'm making villages and I'm making units. While I'm looking at my army the entire time. So that's a really important, a really useful and important skill to be able to sort of practice and do a bit more. When I need to make a house, I know I'm going to need to go back to my bill. I'm going to need to go back to my base. I'm going to double tap 4, take a villager, QQ to make it the house, left click it on the ground, and shift right click back to the tree. Still making units. These guys are going to run out of food soon, so I know I'm going to need to go onto berries. I'm also trying to make a decision here, so I'm going to pause for a second. This whole build is about being able to execute your own plan and not try not to get too dictated by your opponent and get the same sort of like staple initial build order for each game that you play, no matter the civ map, etc. Here, we need to make a choice though. And the choice will be somewhat based on him, but I think you can sort of base it on how you feel. We can go for feudal aggression or we can age up to castle age. There are more options than that. There are things like adding a second town center, or maybe like tech switching or something. But realistically, we're going to want to double down on what we're doing and do a feudal all-in with rams. Or we're going to look to just poke and prod a little bit, but not overcommit and then age up to castle age. And then we can do more damage with armor units and a bit more tech behind us, right? So stronger units rather than just more of them in feudal age. The thing which you choose is not that important, I think, to start with. I think feudal aggression is probably easier. A lot of players, when they get to castle, it makes the game a bit more complex, so you might not want to do it to start with. And in this game, I'll do the feudal version to sort of show that off. But the castle one is a totally fair option and gives you a little bit more to explore in the game. I do encourage you to be a bit creative and just try things out as a new player. But the other things I want you to focus on, or I think you should focus on as a new player, and why this aggression I think is useful, is sort of that the priorities or the focus areas that I've been talking about with macro and embedding good habits. So to recap those a little bit, hotkeys, especially early game, force yourself to use hotkeys. You're going to set yourself up good habits for the future. If you don't do it, you're going to embed bad habits, and it's the worst thing you can do. It'll feel a bit awkward, a bit clunky, and a bit slower. That's fine. It'll come naturally and come quite quickly, but do it early in games while there's less going on. Once games get a bit more hectic, like at this stage of the game, if you, I don't know what the hotkeys are, you can just want to click on things. It's fine. Give yourself some slack. Next is the build production cycle. So you hear this also called the macro cycle. Always make villages. That's number one. 100% biggest like new player or not very good player issue is just not making villages the whole time. Do it. Do it. Another ones are sort of some of the efficiencies. Don't overclick a lot. If something just takes like one click, like A move, left click, just do that once. Don't A move, left click, and then, shit, did I A move, left click? Maybe I need something else. Or I right click here, and then I A move, left click. All this kind of stuff. I've got a friend that just spams clicks, like is panicking the whole game. You don't need to do that. And it's really inefficient, so try not to do that. If you're worried about APM, actions per minute, or speed of playing the game, that will come with knowing what to do and it becoming muscle memory, and you just do it. It doesn't come from forcing yourself to try to play fast. Don't do that. Absolute trap. And again, with this game, like, speed is great and you will find yourself getting faster. That's the way to do it. But you also don't have to be super fast, which is why you see a lot of old mates in their 30s still playing this game, because it is a lot more accessible from that respect compared to a game like StarCraft, which has obviously been one of the biggest RTSs for a lot of people. Other things, so those are sort of more priorities. Other things which I think are worth considering with efficiencies is stuff like shift queuing. So like if I'm like, oh, I want to, like, you know, particularly for like, if, you know, building houses and stuff, like do make sure you're doing the shift Q stuff. These guys are almost done. Actually, they are done, right? I'm going to cancel one of these spearmen and see if I can get some wood, and then I'm going to move them across to berries because these guys are just going to stand around. So I'm just going to shift right click. The ones that are done are already over there, and now I can just go QW, left click the mill, and they're all going to go, which is nice. And I can actually rally over there. Actually, I'm going to rally onto wood, which I'll explain for a minute. But stuff like that, like you could do that a number of ways to get them across there to the berries, but using shift is a nice way of being efficient, and you don't have to press so many buttons. So I think that's a good example of efficiency and trying to embed good habits. And another thing, as you sort of be aggressive while trying to macro behind it, is you're really trying to get all the little margins out of your build while also needing to control an army. So it forces you to kind of multitask and have to do these things together, which is not easy and can be a little bit overwhelming. But I think we're just going to bring these guys up. I think it's quite a good way to really learn the game, as opposed to the alternative, which some people like. They just want to be defensive, turtle on their base. But then there's so many aspects of the game you're just not learning if you do it that way, which I think is a waste. I've come pretty much to the end of the things I wanted to say, to be honest with you. We're going to just make... Oh, you're going to get engineering. We're just going to make some... Actually, I'm going to do two things, and then I'm going to basically end it there. First one is... I didn't talk about this in the main build order video, but I'm talking about briefly now, is upgrades. So one of the things about macro in general is that you want to be making the most of your money. This wood upgrade, for example, or all the sort of these upgrades that produce your eco, if you've got a lot of villages, like 10 plus on the resource, it is going to pay itself off really quickly to get it. So you should try to get those eco upgrades. If you don't get them, it's not a big deal. And it might be a little bit more of the advanced state. But it's a nice little efficiency optimization you can get in, and is a good sort of test for building your macro. The other thing is refreshing your lumber camps. It is always more efficient to have your lumber camps as close as possible. So you'll see this a lot, like literally every square they get made. It's still worth it to do that. Yeah. So the biggest thing then, in conclusion, I'm not going to go through and actually do the ram thing. I don't think that really shows anything. You would just get siege engineering, put more guys on wood, make rams, at least 3, I think is a good rule of thumb, and then A move and go kill a shit. Against AI, I'm not really going to show you anything by doing that here. The biggest things are, again, focus on the build production and your sort of macro, the economy side of things, as well as multitasking, being efficient, trying to prioritize things and focus on doing what you're doing well before you worry too much about the opponent. If you get these things right, it will take you through the ranks, honestly, probably quite easily and quite quickly. The biggest difference between all the ranks up until maybe high diamond, low conqueror is just macro, or you're like building your economy and having more stuff, more money, and spending that money on units and having more units. And then you just sort of butt heads, units and units, and the person who has way more wins. You can really just do that up until probably low conqueror. So if you're worried about, if you're talking about like civ balance or like, cheese or all these other struggles that you might have, or how do I get better? Which units do I make? Or like what build do I do? To be honest, if you just be more efficient and if you just work on your macro and do the fundamental things well, you will get yourself up to high diamond, low conqueror pretty easy. Yeah, so have fun with it. I hope that helps somewhat. And apologies if it doesn't. It's probably a little bit longer than I wanted, so apologies for that as well. But yeah, let me know what you think. I'm going to try to do more of these with some of the other more basic civs. So if you have anything in mind you'd want me to show you, or any other ideas for videos, just let me know. I do really appreciate it. Anyway, that's all for now, and see you in the next one. Bye-bye.